Have you ever really truly stopped to think about why you believe what you believe? I mean, we all walk around with these core assumptions, right? About how the world works, about cause and effect, about who I am. But what if those fundamental ideas don't actually hold up when you put them under a microscope? Well, today we're doing just that. We're cracking open a 4th century philosophical manual to put our own modern thinking to the test.
So get this. In an ancient text, the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, philosophers took the time to meticulously catalog 16, that's right, 16 distinct incorrect ways of thinking. And these weren't just random bad takes. No, these were major philosophical positions, these kind of logical traps that people were falling into way back then. And you'll see we're very much still falling into them today.
And just take a look at some of these. The idea that an effect is already hiding inside its cause, or the theory that the self is a real, solid thing. You know, some of these might sound a little out there, but others, they sound a lot like common sense, don't they? Well, this text invites us to pick them all apart with a logical scalpel.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to explore this labyrinth of ideas and understand what its purpose really is. Then we're stepping into the ring for 2 major debates. First up, cause and effect. And then we tackle the big one, the very nature of I. And finally, we'll see why this ancient mental workout is, believe it or not, more relevant than ever.
Okay, so this list of 16 theories, it's not about memorizing fallacies to win arguments on the internet. Think of it more like a training manual for the mind. The whole idea was that by carefully dissecting flawed reasoning, you could sharpen your own thinking, cut through all the intellectual fog, and get a little bit closer to real clarity.
Let's dive right into our first big debate, and this one is based on a really intuitive idea. It just feels right, you know? For a tiny seed to become a massive tree, while the essence of that tree must somehow already be packed inside the seed, just waiting to come out. Let's really look at this theory of effect within the cause.
So the theory basically states that the result, the effect, is already 100% present in its cause. It's just in a hidden form. The tree is already in the seed. The ceramic pot is already in the lump of clay. It seems to make a lot of sense, right? It gives the universe a sense of order.
And this right here is the core argument for it. The people who held this view would say, look, without this principle, the universe would be total chaos. You could plant a rock and get an apple tree. So this theory provides a really comforting sense of predictability. But the question is it actually logical?
All right, let's start the cross-examination. The text guides us to ask a really simple but totally devastating first question. In this theory, are the cause, let's say, the seed, and the effect, the tree, are they ultimately the exact same thing, or are they different?
Let's walk through this logical fork in the road. If you say they are the same, well then the words cause and effect don't mean anything anymore. A seed is a tree is a seed. There's no change, no process. The whole idea just collapses on itself. So okay, they must be different. But that just leads us to the next problem.
And this is where the knot gets even tighter. If the tree is different from the seed, but it's still somehow inside the seed, we have to ask, okay, how is it in there? Is it in an unmanifest state, meaning it hasn't been produced yet? Or is it in a manifest state, meaning it's already fully formed in there?
And boom, here's the checkmate. If you choose option 1 and say the tree is in the seed in an unmanifest state, you're literally saying that something that doesn't exist yet exists. That's a flat-out contradiction. But if you choose option 2 and say it's in a manifest state, you're saying a fully formed tree is already inside the seed and then, what, it needs to be produced again? That makes no sense. It's completely redundant. Neither path works. The theory just crumbles under logical pressure.
Okay, so let's see how this same kind of sharp, logical approach can be applied not just to things out there in the world, but to our own inner world. This next debate is a huge one. It takes on what is maybe our most deeply held belief, the idea that we have a real, permanent, unchanging self.
This is the theory of self, sometimes called Atman. It's the belief that deep down, at your core, there is a real you, an unchanging essence that thinks your thoughts, feels your feelings, and decides on your actions. It's kind of like the little CEO sitting at a desk inside your head, running the whole show.
And the argument for this is incredibly persuasive because it's based on our moment-to-moment experience. When you see something, it's not just a splash of color, is it? There's a powerful feeling that I am seeing. The argument goes that without this central self, our entire experience would just be a chaotic, disconnected flicker of sensations.
So how does the text respond? Well, it doesn't just say, you're wrong. Instead, it says,
Okay, let's investigate. If this real, permanent self exists, we should be able to find it. So, let's go on a search. Where could this I possibly be hiding?
The analysis breaks it down into a few logical possibilities. Now, the term aggregates just means all the changing bits and pieces that make us up: our body, our feelings, our thoughts, perceptions, and so on. So is the self the same as all these parts? Or is it hiding somewhere inside them? Maybe it's outside of them, or is it something else entirely, completely separate?
Well, the first option gets knocked out right away. I mean, think about it. Our bodies change, our thoughts are fleeting, our feelings come and go. They're anything but permanent. So if the self is the same as these things, then the self must also be constantly changing. But the whole point of the theory was that the self is permanent. So that's a direct contradiction. Next.
Okay, what if the self is a separate thing, either hiding inside our mind and body or floating around outside of them? Well, if that were true, it would be totally independent. When your body gets hurt, this separate self wouldn't feel the pain. When your mind feels joy, this self wouldn't be part of it. And that just completely contradicts our most basic experience that I am the one who feels pain and joy.
The search for a location didn't work, so the text tries another brilliant angle. It says, okay, let's forget about where it is for a second and think about what it does. Is this self an active doer, an agent that makes things happen? Or is it a passive, unchanging witness that just watches?
And this, right here, is the final logical trap. If you say the self is an active agent, then it has to change from one moment to the next, right? It goes from not doing to doing. And a changing self, as we've seen, can't be a permanent self. But if you say the self is passive and unchanging, then it can't actually do anything. It can't be the one who says, I will do this. Either way you go, you hit a logical wall.
So after all that tearing down and deconstruction, you might be wondering, what are we even left with? What is the whole point of this intense logical assault on our most basic beliefs? Is the goal just to prove that nothing is real?
Not at all, actually. The goal isn't to say that you don't exist. The point is to show that the you we experience every single moment isn't some fixed solid thing. It's a dynamic process. It's a story that our mind skillfully constructs from a constantly flowing stream of thoughts, feelings, and sensations. This analysis is a tool to help us see that process clearly, without getting trapped by a rigid idea of who we think we are.
And believe me, this 4th century exercise is more relevant today than ever. It's a fantastic workout for our critical thinking muscles. It pushes us to question the assumptions we don't even know we have. And when we start to see the self not as a static noun but as an active verb, we can become more flexible, less defensive, and way more open to change. The self, it turns out, is more like a story we're constantly telling than a thing we possess.
So I'll just leave you with this to think about. We live in a world that is obsessed with fixed identities, with putting ourselves and others into neat little boxes. What might change for you and for all of us if we started treating that solid idea of I with a little more curiosity and maybe just a little less certainty?